Brigand Panama is a DLC to the base game Brigand Awaka, and I have to say, this game is a leap ahead of the base game. Right off the bat of the story, the characters are so much more interesting with backstories and relations to others. There's so much more depth to it too. The narrative itself is just captivating. It's still bizarre, especially at the end, but it still keeps your interest throughout. You follow Ozzy and his ship crew through Panama, trying to catch up to him, trying to figure out what he's going to do next, and it's just really entertaining, like kind of like a show, like, oh man, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen with this character, and what's this tribe relations going to happen with these people? It's just a huge step above from the base game. There's also a lot more freedom in how you deal with your faction relations. Like, I was able to be allied with two opposing factions and kind of use that to my advantage. But eventually you do have to pick a side and be with that team. There's also a lot more dialogue between other like NPC characters that actually makes the world feel a lot more alive instead of everybody just talking directly to you. So it's nice to see how people think of other people or how things are in another perspective rather than your own. In terms of gameplay, there's a lot more added to it, such as new ammo types for the rocket launcher or new grenades. There's also flowers that give different benefits. Also new voodoo skills, different skills you can unlock too, like woodcrafting, which allows you to make spears. There's also new enemy types too, such as bear traps and actual traps in like the temple ruins. There's also a new enemy type called the cyber dogs, but they're a bit easy if you have enough software skill because you can just deactivate all of them in an area. There's also some miscellaneous things are added too, such as being able to buy a house and fend it off from porch pirates. And there's also a trivia night just for Jink, and some of the questions are involve the game, such as who produces the laser weaponry, while others require real-life knowledge, like how many kids has your local priest touched, and it's just things you might have to look up. So a lot more side quests you can do, and they're also more varied than the base game. Like one of them is finding out what happened to a hooker that fell off a waterfall, and you have to use the medallion to kind of investigate what happened. The difficulty in this game is about on par with the base game. It's kind of how you make your build, and that'll kind of determine how much difficulty this game gets. Speaking of that, stealth and melee builds are a lot more viable in this DLC because there's far less frequent enemies that have infrared vision. So you can actually use stealth the way it's supposed to be, and actually sneak up to a person and whack them with a katana. There's also very little, if not just one, instances where you're going to die instantly from an enemy, and that instance was only with the boss, so really you have no problem anymore if going with a melee build. How you can distribute your stats is still dependent on what faction path you take, but the specialty trainers are more spread out evenly, which makes it easier to make your build, and you don't have to wait until endgame to get a stat up to its max level. And before I forget, voodoo is a lot more powerful because there's more spells you can use, and there's enemy types that are only affected by, say, like cold damage, and voodoo or a grenade would be the only way to actually damage it. And during the midpoint of the game, once you get to the kind of tomb or crypt area, grenades and melee are a must if you're not going to have a voodoo build, because the enemies in there are pretty much tanks against bullets. You can shoot them a bunch of times and they'd still be standing about to kick your ass. Or you can have one of your companions just make up for that deficiency by being say a katana wielding ninja or somebody that can use voodoo. Your party members don't level up anymore in this DLC, but I did find a trick to doing so, and it's on another video on this channel. But your party members are already kind of at their peak of what they're going to be, so there's really no reason to level them up, unless you're trying to go for like a certain perk, but I think by the time you even see this video, it'll be patched. Your party members still have backstories to them that grow as you progress through the story, and they also reveal more as you progress, which is nice. It makes the world feel a lot more dynamic and just a whole lot better narrative, like I've been saying. The graphics are still the same from the base game, but how everything is designed is still pretty well made. And all the areas you do visit do flow well together. And they also intertwine with like shortcuts or different ways to get to them. so it all feels nice as a world. The music in Panama is a lot more interesting and a bit more fitting for the whole tropical setting compared to Oaxaca. They also set the tone pretty well too, with some of them building up to like a chase, like, oh, we're about to hunt down Ozzy and his crew and about to catch up to them and beat their ass. Or some of them build up like a nice eerie tension, especially with the Crips. The only issues I had with this game is that sometimes the frame rate will drop. And I only noticed in like 2 areas, the forest and the jungle. So I'm not sure what happened there, but I do think the DLC is a bit less optimized than the base game. But it hasn't even been a year since this DLC's been out, so it's understandable. But you'll probably encounter some technical problems, like with me, I'd get a frame rate drop from a disabled cyborg that was still moving around. In one part of the forest area, I'd get a consistent crash if I did certain things. And it was like shooting a dog through a window, and for some reason it kept crashing every time I did that, so I had to change up my path to avoid it. But other than that, the gameplay and story will keep you interested enough to get past all the jankiness of the DLC. And like Oaxaca, Panama comes with another challenge map, and this one's called Brigand Squirrel. And this one's a lot more shorter, with it only taking place within one night, but it feels more like a demo for Panama, which it was designed to be that way. The developer, Brian Lancaster, decided just to kind of finish it out, and it's more Brigand content, so I can't complain. So if you did enjoy Brigand Oaxaca, you'll very much will enjoy this DLC. It takes everything from the base game and just amplifies it to a better level. I'm sure if you made another game like this, it would just be another huge step above what's already here. So I highly recommend it. I'd probably even recommend it more than Brigand Oaxaca, just from how much an improvement it is. And the creator, Brian Lancaster, is working on another game called Warlordocracy, which is more 2D and kind of a different project than Brigand Oaxaca or Panama. And there's a demo on itch.io if you want to try it out and give it a whirl, see how it goes. And that's about it. Brigand Panama is highly enjoyable with a little bit of jankiness sprinkled in, but it's all worth it.